Welcome, everybody. We're going to call the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission regular meeting to order at 6 o'clock on Wednesday, May 15th. Looking for any changes to our agenda. This item one.
None from staff.
Okay. We're going to have item 2, public comment for items that are not on the agenda. Is there any person from the public who would like to speak to any subject that we don't have on our agenda tonight? Please speak up. Raise your hand. Hearing and seeing none, we will move on to our consent agenda. We have 2 items on our consent agenda, and we're going to have to separate them because we have the first item 3A as a tip amendment.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the tip amendment, item A, on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Dan. This item to be voted on is for MPO action only, so the municipalities, please. All those in favor, please raise your hands or say aye.
Chris, I'm sorry, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes, go ahead, Christine.
Sorry, I have an echo in here, but there was a change to the agenda, an additional tip amendment item.
I'm sorry, I missed that there. Yeah, there's an item 3C. Sorry, Chris.
Okay, and what is 3C?
Yeah, Christine, can you, there's 2 tip amendments on Christine,
Well,
a 3A and a 3C?
Parliamentary inquiry, I moved approval of 3A, so we can't really discuss 3C.
Right,
Yeah.
we will get to 3C. How's that?
But
So-
we should maybe go back to 1 and say there is a change to the agenda.
We will
Yeah.
circle back, if I can use
Yeah.
that term, to
Sorry to be a stickler.
no, you are correct. We should have brought that up on item 1. But we're working on item 3A, the tip amendment, as you see in your package, and let's clarify that tip amendment. It is the one that you have in your package, the C1 consent item with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items of construction for an upgraded box culvert, construction of improvement sidewalks along Route 116, additional funding for sidewalk and Irish Hill Road, scoping study for Adelphia, pond cable, and construction of a new sand salt shed. Is that correct, Jeff? Okay. All right. So
Yes.
all those in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. Thank you.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining, please speak up. All right, there we go with 3A.
Who seconded that one? I got Jeff with the motion. I didn't hear a second.
Dan Karen.
Thanks.
Okay. So the second item is the minutes from the April 17th board meeting.
Mr.
And-
Chair, parliamentary inquiry,
Yes, go ahead.
if we make the motion to accept the minutes with changes, does that mean it has to come off the consent agenda?
Yes.
Yeah. I was going to ask that anyway.
How do I know if there's no changes?
People have to be prepared, and I should be better at this. When we go with item 1, asking for changes to the agenda,
Oh, okay.
the hands should automatically shoot up and say, oh, by the way, I have an additional tip amendment.
So
And oh, by the way, I have some changes to the minutes.
I'm gonna move approval of the minutes. with my
Sorry about
fingers
that.
crossed that Catherine doesn't have,
I have one.
well, then it's
I'll
gotta come off the
second.
consent agenda.
And can we just put in a rule that we know that there will always be changes if Catherine's attending?
That's terrible.
So I'll make a motion that we remove item 3B from the consent agenda for the purposes of approving the minutes with any member changes.
All right.
And I
And
promise,
Sharon,
that-
Are you
I
in?
promise next
I'll
time to
second.
remember to
Thank
do that at number 1 then, rather
Thank
than
you.
wait till the actual consent agenda.
All right, so we're removing item 3B from the consent agenda, and we're placing it back at the top of our list of 3 subprime something or other, 0.
Uh.
And in the meantime, we're going to entertain Christine's tip amendment as another
So we
change.
have to vote to remove item B from the consent agenda, correct?
I believe so.
No. Yeah.
All those in favor of removing 3B from the consent agenda, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining, please speak up. All right, let's deal with the minutes. We're going to continue with 3 3.0 now, back to the beginning.
I have one change in, it's minor, but you really don't want to have errors in your minutes anyway. But Jason is listed twice, once as a senior transportation planning engineer and another time as senior transportation planner.
Oh, good God, I hope we're not paying him both salaries. Sorry, Jason.
Can confirm that's a negative. I don't do two positions here.
Well, looked like you're really busy.
So
which
Jason, what
title
is your position?
What is the correct title?
It's the senior transportation planning engineer.
Oh,
Thank you. So we're going to move to delete that, Catherine, is that correct?
Yeah, delete in under CCRPC staff in the second column, starting with Taylor, moving the third one from the bottom has him as the senior transportation planner that needs to be removed.
Any other changes that people have noticed or need to be made? All right, then we need a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
so I move
Garrett?
approval with the change.
I think Garrett had his hand up first.
Okay, fine, I'll second it.
And you'll second Garrett. Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
And anyone abstaining
I'll abstain.
and who is that now?
Joe Segali.
Joe
And
Segali. Thank you,
I'll
Joe.
abstain as well. Dan
Thank
Karen.
you, Dan Karen. Okay, there we are. So, Christine, bring us up to date on the other item. The tip
Sure.
amendment.
So these are tip amendments to safety projects. The state compiles a highway safety improvement program and has funding available for safety projects. And the projects in the TIP, the funding in the projects in the TIP have to align with the state's plan. So this is just adjusting funding sources for the projects that are listed with this funding source on the TIP to make it the same as the state's program. So we're not changing overall amounts, we're just shifting funding sources.
Okay, and then as a separate item here in your packet, you see this titled Agenda Item 3C, Consent Item, Transportation Improvement Program, Amendments to Highway Safety, HSIP funded projects. There's 10 bullet points and 11 line items. Can you explain the difference for those?
Those are just the individual projects that are
Okay.
changing. That's just the detail to each of the projects and the change that is proposed to each of the projects.
Okay, I just didn't know why one was 10 and the other was 11, but they're just accounting as it were.
The number of projects you're talking
What-
about?
The numbers within the projects. You're changing the amounts from one
Right.
fiscal year to the next.
From funding sources, from fiscal years, and then from like HSIP, which is a funding source, to like NHPP, National Highway Preservation Program, and I think there's some that changes to the Surface Transportation Block Grant.
Since this isn't really any longer on the consent agenda, I feel free to ask these questions. But does anybody else have any questions about this?
And so this is MPO vote again?
Yes, it is, I believe. Charlie? Yes, MPO? Okay. So any further questions for Christine on this matter? So I need a motion to approve the TIP
I move
amendments.
approval of the second round of safety-based TIF amendments.
Thank you, Jeff. And Andy Montrell, thank you for the second. All those in favor, please say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
And all those opposed or abstaining, please speak up. All right, let's move on to item 4. This is the draft fiscal year 2025 Unified Planning Work Program and Budget. We need to open the public hearing for this. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you, Andy Watts of Williston. And we need a second for that.
Second.
Thank you, Dan Karen. Need to vote on that, Charlie, or we just?
Yeah, I guess, the way I structured the agenda was to leave it open and give us a little bit of time to just walk through.
Well, in other words, you don't need to a vote to open the hearing after a motion and
Oh.
second, or do we?
No, yes, you need to vote.
We
I'm
do.
sorry.
Thank you. And all those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye. Aye. I'm getting a little dizzy here already. Anyone opposed or abstaining, please speak up. Thank you. The public hearing is open. Let's hear about the fiscal year UPWP and budget review.
Yeah, so in your packet, you have, sorry, I'm scrolling around a little bit here, a memo, which is, I think, pretty much the same memo you saw last month when this was a draft. I spent more time walking through the budget with you all last month, and you all pretty much stayed awake, but I'm not going to do that to you again because this will definitely put you out. But so I think this did go, the only thing that's really happened, the changes in the memo are really that the executive committee reviewed this on May 1st and is recommending it to you for action after the public hearing. And the TAC also reviewed and recommended the work program to you for action. So those are the key changes in the memo. And there were maybe some very slight tweaks as we were just trying to dial in a couple of line items and stuff in the budget, but pretty similar budget to what you saw last month, I think. We've been playing around more on the expense side with how to properly staff, and also we're finishing our compensation study. The executive committee is considering different benefits. So this is as we try to do a little conservatively budgeted with those expenses, even though some of those decisions haven't been made yet to incur those expenses, both on the staffing side and on the benefit side. So I think if anything, hopefully those numbers come down a little bit, but and our budget gets a little bit more rosy. You can see it's a little bit more than 14,000 to the positive at the bottom line. And again, we try to be pretty conservative here at the outset. So I hope that gets better as we go through the fiscal year. And happy to take any questions or if there are any lines either on the revenue side or expense side that people want to ask about.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, Charlie, I just wanted to know programmatically on the UPWP list, was there anything that moved, or is it pretty much the same as we saw last month?
Yeah, the work program is the same.
Okay.
And I think, sorry, I'm saying that, and then I'm all of a sudden raise a question in my mind, Elaine. I don't know if we had any changes due to TPI or anything that might have.
I did update the deliverables in subtasks to include the latest TPI guidance and whatever we need to do for that. So that's updated in the deliverables.
And I know that we're still discussing a particular benefit. Have we built that into the budget with the idea that if we do it, it's covered? If we don't do it, then we've overestimated the budget for our staff?
Exactly right.
Do we know whether or not that budget is offered by our member community, that benefit is offered by our member communities? And are we going to be out of alignment with our member communities if we as a regional organization offer that benefit and very few of our member municipalities offer that benefit?
That last statement is probably very factual. Just for the benefit of everyone else, so we're not talking in code here, I would refer you to the executive committee minutes if you want to get a deeper dive into the conversation about the compensation study and the benefits. What Jeff is referring to specifically, I think, and I shouldn't assume, but I think is paid family leave.
Yeah, that was the undecided benefit in the executive committee minutes. And
yeah, along with retirement, an increase in retirement benefits. So those are the two things that the executive committee still has on the table to consider at their next meeting. And Jeff, to answer your question more specifically about has any municipality done this yet? The state has been experimenting or piloting paid family leave, I think, for state employees this year. The only municipality so far that I'm aware that is offering that benefit specifically is the city of Burlington. And so, yeah, that's what we've been kind of talking about. And Northwest RPC, our peer, to the north, offers some paid family leave. So yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about. And you're right, Jeff. There's we're certainly not trying to compete or drag the towns into something, but we are, I think, just exploring it at the moment. And there's a new insurance program that is coming out to offer family leave that comes effective July 1. We're still waiting on some of those insurance numbers to see how cost effective it is.
If we do it, okay, and I always defer to the management team and the executive committee on such matters, that we do what we need to do to maintain our competitiveness and support our staff. It would be helpful if you would provide the members who have to sit in front of their select boards and defend such things, the points for why we did it. And we really need to make sure that we look at such things within the confines of sustainability, particularly when we're already expanding another significant benefit that's going to be funded through the payroll tax.
Yeah, you're talking about the child care.
Yes. Yes, that everybody has to do.
Yep.
And we as an organization are going to provide the funding for that payroll tax as an employer contribution, if I'm remembering our discussions properly. Right. So we just, I know we live in this environment, but we really have to do things that are sustainable and for good reasons, and for ways in which each one of us that represent our municipalities are able to sit there in front of our legislative bodies, whether it's a city council or a select board, and we have the best information that we can have to defend our organization's budget.
Yeah, thank you. And Chris, I don't know if you can see Garrett's hand.
Yeah, go ahead, Garrett.
Thank you. I just point out that part of our job is to lead, and here's an example of us leading, and I think it's a good thing. That's all.
I do think that we haven't done compensation studies in 5 years, and if we do it in another 5 years, we don't want to be behind the curve. At least as we sense that, Vermont is in its statewide process going, and to have these insurance plans available sort of leads one to believe that it's doable and sustainable, more so than we're going to discover, like Rusty Jones in the 1980s, that we're going to be out of business for having paid for rusted cars.
Please understand, I'm not micromanaging the professional staff, nor the executive committee. I just want to make sure that we've covered our bases appropriately, so this can be defended in a face-to-face setting with our legislative bodies. That's all that I'm saying.
I'm happy to help Charlie with any of the 5 bullet points that we would want to use to bulwark our position on this. If it gets approved.
Not all of our legislative bodies necessarily believe that the RPC should lead.
Understood.
And certainly, we have to be sensitive to how we do that as well. And Jeff, I don't want to speak for other executive committee members. I'm sorry, for executive committee members who haven't spoken, but they're on their select boards. I think they had some of the same thoughts in their minds. So that's definitely more conversation happening at the executive committee. That needs to happen also. So, and we don't have all the facts in front of us to make a decision there. But back to your earlier point, the budget is constructed conservatively to incorporate those costs if they are approved, and if not, we'll be in a better financial situation. So
any other thoughts on the budget and the UPWP from anyone? Are there any members of the public who would like to comment? Any other thoughts, Charlie, from you?
Not any useful, no.
Okay. Shall we leave the hearing open, or should we close it in order to take action on it?
I mean, I don't see anybody else trying to get in, so I don't know. Up to your judgment as to whether you want to close it
I
now
move we
and
close
act, or-
this public hearing.
Thank you for your alacrity, Dan. Can I get a second on that? Catherine, thank you. Appreciate it. So Dan's made the motion to close the public hearing. Catherine seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye. Aye. And then anyone opposed or abstaining,
Aye.
please speak up. Oh, Andy, I like your balloons.
I have no idea what happened right then. I don't know what happened.
It was eye-catching. You know, it's you keep it in play. Like the cats. So what we'll need now is 4D, approval of the fiscal year 2025 UPWP and budget from the MPOs only.
I'd move approval, Mr.
All
Chair.
right, as an MPO, thank you, Jeff. Second, please. Thank you, Dan. I saw your hand. So all those in any further discussion on MPO action only here? If not, all those in favor MPO business only, please raise your hand or say aye. Anyone opposed or abstaining, please speak up. Okay, so 4D is approved, and we're going to go to RPC action, Regional Planning Commission members.
Since I'm the lone person, I'll move.
Sorry we left you out on the last one there, Garrett, but I appreciate your motion, and we want to get you on record.
Hugely offended.
Thank you. Second to Garrett's motion to approve the RPC portion of the UPWP. Thank you, Catherine. And all those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. And anyone opposed or abstaining, please speak up. Thank you. So we got everybody on that one. Let's move on to item 5, Board Development Committee report on nominations. Is this you, Catherine?
Yes, that is me.
Thank you.
And as chair of the board development committee, we set the slate, and this was talked about last time. And I checked with the incumbents to see if they wish to continue in their positions, and everyone signified that they were interested in continuing, but Elaine was not sure. So I talked to her over the weekend, and she likes what she's doing, but recognizes that she doesn't have the time to devote to the RPC, and is looking for someone to replace her for Essex Junction. And so the Board Development Committee at their last meeting then voted to recommend Andy Maltrell to represent the municipalities over 5,000. So the slate will be Chris Shaw stays as chair, Bart Hill vice chair, Jackie Murphy secretary treasurer, Andy Montrell at large for towns over 5, and Michael Bissonette at large for towns under 5. And I'm the immediate past chair.
With apologies to Andy Montrell, because he stepped up yet again after an extended service prior to being brought back into the fold. Sorry, Andy, we still love you.
Yeah.
Not a problem. It's always my pleasure.
And the Board Development Committee spent a long time talking about that too, whether to, move the needle somewhere, but in the end, it was experience that won out.
And it's valuable institutional knowledge as well, as we find with Jeff's experience too. So welcome back, Andy. Looking forward to that, and I'll buy you a drink in June.
Sounds good.
Was that it, Catherine? Do we have any more?
At the moment, that's it. During the summer, we will be having probably multiple meetings to revise the bylaws based on various changes that are occurring over time.
Yeah, that's another cyclical thing that we do need to address. Thank you very much for that work, because I know it's the nitty-gritty that lays our foundation for future changes, and recognizes the ones that we put in the past too.
And for the new members, we're going to move this slate at the June annual meeting, where we also have the opportunity for nominations from the floor. If
I should have said
any member suggests, and we won't vote on this until we're at Waterworks.
So if there's anyone who wants to step up now's your chance, right? Or in June is your chance at Waterworks. Very
Right.
good. Thank you for that reminder, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
And thank you, Catherine. Good hard work. Let's, we ready to move on to item 6, equity update? Is Ann Nelson with us tonight, Charlie, or no?
No, but it's a happy thing for her. She's finally enjoying a long delayed honeymoon, and her birthday was yesterday. So she's I think in the fjords of Norway, I think, enjoying
Wow.
herself. So that was most of my equity update. But just I think she and the team have been really working on a lot of focus groups with folks that don't normally come to public meetings. And so we were in Milton, I think a week or so ago, with a mobile home community up there. And today we were in Richmond with a senior center. So we're trying to get some more diverse perspectives, voices into the ECOS plan update. And so that's been a large part of the focus. And she will, we didn't have an equity advisory committee meeting last month because we had the housing convening. So, and I'll do just a quick update on that in a couple minutes. But so I think that's all I have for the equity update, Chris. Unless
thank you.
Staff can remind me if I'm missing anything else. Emma says no. Okay.
And we're still on track for our ECOS wrap up at some point in early 2025. Is that where we are?
In terms of the ECOS plan,
yes.
I'm going to say yes and.
Yes and.
Yeah, I think we're trying to get done as much as we can get done this year. And I think we've talked before about kind of incorporating. There's been more things coming in the climate world and the equity world that we're trying to incorporate in the plan. And also housing targets. You may remember we talked a little bit about that last year, are coming out this summer. We'll start that process, Chris. I'm going to reserve judgment because I'm too often proven wrong that maybe we need some more discussion on that, particularly. So I think we may have to stage this, vote on the plan once in early 2025. And then we'll also, back to earlier conversation, assuming H687, the Act 250 bill goes into law, we're going to have some mapping process to update, including factoring in those housing targets. So there may be kind of a second step at the ECOS plan that happens throughout the course of 25 into 26 to kind of update those maps and the housing targets to make everything work right and do the engagement with our municipalities, frankly.
Yes, I was going to ask how the housing targets are determined. We're not going to be the sole determinant of housing targets. I hope that
the state is going to give us a regional housing target.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been working with the town planners at our planning advisory committee on a methodology for how to disaggregate, just kind of based on a straw number, okay, let's say it's 5,000 units over some period of time. How would we disaggregate? So I think the PAC has had a subcommittee working on this with our staff, and I think we're getting someplace that may be fairly workable, but then we'll never know until we actually, bring it out into the light of day and work with the town. So there'll be some significant process.
I think the trepidation Jeff has in justifying our UPWP budget will pale in comparison to the housing targets, as we all know. So,
yep. Yeah. And it is, compared to what we did 20 years ago, this is now in statute, and, it's, there's more support for the housing work for sure.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, thank you for the update. Can we move on to housing in 7A?
Yeah. I guess I already started my update, I guess. So yeah, that was the ECOS plan update that wasn't on the agenda, but right. Thank you, Chris, for asking about that. Taylor did want to, I think we'll have a deeper discussion in your July meeting about the ECOS plan process and what's happening. So heads up on that. Housing convening, we had Sorry, I'm looking at Emma, but I think we had like 65 or so folks
Yeah.
at Hula at the well, a few weeks ago now. We also did a little exit survey, and I got, I think, a lot of positive feedback about the event and how it was run and how it worked. So some of that information will feed into the ECOS plan, because there was some focused attention on housing actions. What should we be encouraging or keeping in our plan? So that was good, and it was a really diverse group of folks that showed up there. So that was nice to see. Any questions on that? Sorry, I know some of you were there. I know Bruce, and is Christine still here? Yeah, she was there. Bard, you were there. Yeah, thanks for those of you that did attend. It was a good discussion. No questions on that. Staffing update. I may have let you know, Pam Brangan is retiring. So you probably saw that on the announcement for the annual meeting. So we'll spend a little time on June 18th celebrating Pam. And also we have, due to her retirement, Melanie is moving up into her position, taking on a little bit more of that basic IT function for us. And also that has meant that we're kind of advertising for a planning position right now. So that ad is out there. If you know anyone, please send them in. And sorry, I'm going to look at Emma again. I think, did we broadcast that to all the board members?
Not yet, but I was going to do it today. Didn't want to overwhelm people with the annual meeting and that, but yeah, that's going out tomorrow to everyone. So watch for that and feel free to forward it if you know anyone.
Yeah, so we're just trying to let the network also work as in terms of recruitment. It's been interesting. Typically we've gotten more responses more quickly to ads. So we haven't got a lot of response to this ad yet. Hopefully we will. But so if you know someone who might be good, please forward it along. Legislative update. We also kind of touched on this already. The Act 250 bill did finally make it through in the wee hours I guess was it just last Friday night? Thanks, Emma, for posting the job ad. So the Act 250 bill, let me know if you have questions on this or want to talk more about it, but what I'm hearing is that the legislature feels pretty confident they have a veto-proof majority. But I will also say that the bill in those final hours moved much closer to the governor's position. So I don't have a clear sense yet, and was talking to some of the administration staff today. I think it's kind of still 50-50 as to whether he may veto it, he may let it go into law without his signature, or he may sign it and kind of say there's more work to do. But either way, it does look like it will go into law. And there are some immediate Act 250 exemptions that go into place. Hopefully that helps spur some housing development quickly. And then there's a lot more work in the long term. And Chris was kind of making reference to this too, as we look at, updating our future land use maps. And our maps are going to be much more tied in the long run to where there's Act 250 exemption areas. So that's really the big policy change. And also our maps are going to be the decider about the designations. Right now, like a town has to individually apply to the state to get a village center designation. With this new system, if we work with the town and they want to have a village center designation, we can incorporate it in our map, have the state approve it, and approve our regional map and get all the village centers approved at one time. So that's going to be a big change, and hopefully take some burden off of municipalities.
But not town centers?
I'm sorry, I'm being a little generic. I think there's only going to be 2 designations in the future. they've grouped these downtown and village centers. So I'll just refer to them as centers. And those will be via our map, and also neighborhoods. So there will still be a neighborhood designation that will also be identified on our maps.
So town centers per se are going away?
They're just called downtowns.
Different, they're called different things.
Exactly.
And what you're saying is what you're saying, and what confused me for being confused a little bit.
No.
The takeaway is we now have to go to the RPC to get a downtown or village center designation, or we work with you and then the state accepts it, or do we still have to go through the process with the state where all those things are required that were part of the old statute?
We will be able to handle, I'll call it the low level designation. So kind of the geography. Part of the frustration that municipalities were having was kind of parcel by parcel debates with state staff about these, particularly the village centers and sometimes the downtowns. So we'll have that debate at our table and kind of bring the state a completed map that they can approve and get all those areas approved all at one time.
Oh.
There is another layer. If a municipality wants to be completely exempt from Act 250, this is what's been referred to as a Tier 1A. The municipality will still have to go through a process with the new Natural Resources Board that I think they've named the Land Use Resource Board, Land Use Review Board, something like that. LURB, the LURB. So for better or worse.
It looked pretty complex when I was looking at the bill. And the proof in the pudding, so to speak, is the fact that you're going to need a lot of property transfer tax revenues to be put into the RPCs in order to pull this off.
Oh, hold on. I'm not taking the blame for that property transfer tax revenue increase. That is not about funding RPCs.
I'm teasing you. I saw it goes. I see a good chunk of it goes to you, so I couldn't resist.
Yeah, well, that's been the statutory formula for 30 years, right? But yeah, so if you do
not with a 3.78% percentage above $750,000.
That 750,000, I think is. I'm sorry.
I was just saying.
Excuse me, I exaggerated by 0.03 of a point.
3.65 is what the number is.
And just for everyone's sake here, because obviously some people have read the bill and some have not, but there is this increase in property transfer tax charges, particularly on second homes. And that is designed, I think to generate, I can't remember, 16 or 17 million for more for housing programs. So that's where that extra money is going to. And I just want to be clear for the record, that is not going to RPCs. We have always gotten a share. Our regional planning funds have been, there's a formula in statute that has been there for 30 years. You'll see that.
One third.
It's a little messier than that, but 50% goes to VHCB, and then we get like a third of the other 50% or 17%. So anyway, sorry, Joe and Abel. Joe.
Yeah, Charlie, I've been wondering about this new center designation process. So I assume that means that anything that's an existing designated, whether it's a village center, downtown, new town center, whatever, so that eventually will be replaced by this new category, right?
The village center should remain pretty consistent. And actually the statute, the bill kind of talks about preserving what's there. And, I'm hoping it's a pretty seamless transition. It's just going to be, I think it's going to be less process for municipalities. They don't have to go through those reviews every 5 years and things like that.
But I'm wondering if I'm thinking from Huntington's perspective, like our designated village centers are so tiny that they're pretty much useless. And, so maybe it's an opportunity to think again about what a better boundary might be for those areas. But that is that something that would happen over the next 2-3 years, 1 year? I mean, what's generally the timeline?
At the moment, so I want to caveat this. I'm expecting that if this goes into law, that we will probably start working, we may start working on the mapping like later this calendar year, but definitely in 2025. There's kind of a question in my head about, how quickly do we get to consensus, with all of our municipalities about those maps, where we can then bring it to the state. I think the state has to be ready to start approving them January 1, 26.
Okay, so it's something that it's going to happen over the next whatever year, 18 months or so.
At the fastest. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sure. Well, I'll stay tuned because to figure out how we're supposed to be involved with that, and help out. And obviously, we need to sort of give direction on where we want those boundaries to be. I think shouldn't just come down from the RPC. I assume you wouldn't do that, but that we're going to be involved in figuring out what the right boundaries are from our perspective.
Yeah, and I would hope that you as a town has already done a lot of this work in your town plan, right? Like what you want your village to look like and how far. So yeah, I think we'll be having those conversations over the next couple of years.
Okay, thank you.
Abel, were you going to ask something similar?
You may not know the answer to this, but you mentioned that the bill changed a little bit to move closer to the governor. Do you know what changes were made?
I think I do, but I don't know for sure. Is there one that you're interested in? Because there were like 8 or 10 of them.
Not necessarily. I mean, I guess, the opposite end of the spectrum, the conservation tier is one I'm interested in, but other changes you might know.
On the conservation side, I think, thanks for bringing that up. Because there was kind of this grand bargain going on this whole time, right? Like, oh, well, if we, open up some area for development, we're going to try to, have a more regulation on the natural resource side. That has been referred to as Tier 3, and these village and downtown, the growth area has been referred to as Tier 1. Like that was what came out of the summer study last summer. The Tier 3 is going to be subject to rulemaking by this land use review board, and with consultation with A&R, and I'm sure a whole bunch of folks. The only thing that really changed at the last minute was there was a little phrase in there added to the rulemaking that said something to the effect of that the land use review board will kind of make sure that no town has so much Tier 3 that they can't have any Tier 1 or Tier 2 land. So there was kind of a concern from rural legislators that they were going to be 100%. Their town was going to be 100% Tier 3, and just for folks to understand that Tier 3, the way that bill is worded now, means that Tier 3 would be jurisdictional for Act 250, whereas right now it's more about the number of units you do, right, or the number of acres in development. This would be more geography-based, map-based jurisdictional threshold. So that was really, on the natural resource side, I think that was really the only change. And it was a pretty, I don't think it was meaningful change. It was just clarifying change in language there.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Sorry. And do feel free to use me as a resource on this. Like I was way more involved than I ever expected to be in that process and in the bill, including the language I just mentioned, which was like a legislator, the rural caucus, asked for help to get some language to clarify that intent in Tier 3. That was Thursday before the vote on Friday. So there was a lot of just kind of some nuanced clarification that happened at the end there.
Thou shalt not have entire towns designated as catamount habitat.
Right. Future
Well,
catamount. Yeah.
What an exciting time to be a municipal and regional planner. It's big.
That's one word for it, Dana. Yeah.
Yeah.
wait, this is the language. Wait till he gets to the maps.
Yeah. Well, and I've also been trying to manage expectations of like, I am quite certain that the statutory language is not perfect, and that as we get into this work over the next couple of years, we're going to stumble upon things where we're like, legislature, would you please fix this, this, and this?
Yeah.
We'll try to keep a running, list of those items that need to get refined or revised as we go along.
This is why we're happy to welcome Andy back onto the board, because we do need more lawyers when it comes to these stumbling, words that come out of Montpelier at times, to add precision where there isn't any.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what comes of it all.
Yeah. Two other legislative things I want to make sure. The open meeting law, we've been under kind of COVID open meeting law procedures for the last few years. It looks like they got to agreement on advisory committees could still have fully remote meetings. So, maybe your planning commissions or, other committees that you have that don't have actual authority to make any decisions, where they make recommendations to the select board, can be fully remote. Your decision-making bodies like the RPC or your select board or city council will have to, it doesn't exactly say this, but I think functionally we'll have to have hybrid options. And I think that is, from what I've seen, pretty much happening in all of our towns anyway. So, and if you don't do hybrid meetings now, you have to, if somebody requests, you have to at least give them the ability to, plug in via phone or Zoom or whatever. Again, it doesn't use those words exactly, but, you have to accommodate requests to participate, either in person or through some, audio or video technology. Any questions on the open meeting law stuff? Yeah, so that's new changes. I expect that to get signed into law sometime in the next couple of weeks here. And then there is another. This is more in the line of studies. There was I think they called it county and regional governance study that came out of Senate GovOps, and that does look like it's passing also. So I don't know how big or small that will get, but it's something I think will. And let me know if any of you are interested in kind of, keeping a finger on that. I think we'll try to be doing that as staff a little bit for sure. But just to see what comes out of that kind of conversation. Which does remind me, now that I'm mentioning studies, I think there's maybe 10 or 12 reports and studies that are in the Act 250 bill. So there's still more that they're trying to figure out. Like appeals was one of those big ones. Should this new professional board hear appeals or not? That ended up in study language as opposed to making a change or not. So sorry, that's all I've got on legislative update, and I don't have anything else to report, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you very much. And I imagine all these studies are going to fall on us at some point.
I hope not. No, I mean,
I feel bad. Jason's already working 2 jobs. We just eliminated one tonight, though, Jason.
That's right.
So
the new person we hire, they'll just be the study planner.
Very good.
I appreciate you bringing that room
the
on.
joke for the minutes. Yeah.
Thank you. Item 8, if you look in your packet, you can review all the committee liaison activities and reports that we had this past month. The Executive and Finance Committee of the TAC, Transportation Committee of the QUAC with MS4, the Planning Advisory Committee, and Catherine's Board Development Committee. Absent that, we're going to look ahead to our annual meeting on a Tuesday next month in recognition of Wednesday being Juneteenth. We will meet on Tuesday, June 18th, so make a note of that at Waterworks in Winooski. Other than that, if there are no other items, I will accept a motion to adjourn. Is that
So
you,
moved.
Jeff?
Second.
Move to adjourn.
All right, and thank you, Dan. All those in favor, please say aye.
One point of discussion.
Yes,
One point of discussion.
please.
On our agendas in the past, we've always had an item called members items.
Mhm.
And I noticed that it slipped off the agenda. I would request that we put it back because we should give our members an opportunity to raise an issue.
You are correct.
In the thing. And with that, I'm going to shut up and vote yes.
Thank you. And all those in agreement, please raise your hand, say aye, and hit the leave
Aye.
button. Those that didn't, stick around and make your notes to our.
Thank you
Jason,
all. Have a good
thank you.
night.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
evening.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
See you on the
Good night.
18th. Thank you.